The weight of the image. Dr. Sorin was a man of precision. As a radiologist, he spent his days in a dimly lit room, staring at the ghosts of bones and organs. Today, he was analyzing a complex scan for a patient whose name contained a persistent umlaut that his computer struggled to print. Sorin had to look up the correct spelling to ensure the record was perfect. "It's better not to watch it," he whispered to a nervous intern as he pointed to a particularly nasty fracture. He knew that for those without a medical background, the internal reality of an injury could be quite distressing. After a long shift, Sorin's mind was often stuck on the images he had seen. This morning, he had been so distracted that he accidentally began filling someone else's trolley with his groceries at the supermarket. Even now, as he sat in his kitchen, he barely tasted his muesli. He knew he needed the gym to clear his head. He needed to trade the weight of responsibility for the physical weight of iron. He needed to heed his body's cry for movement before the stress became an immovable object. At the gym, Sorin met his friend Theron, a veteran equipment handler who kept the facility in top shape. Theron was already at the power rack, preparing a heavy barbell. "You look like you've seen a ghost, Sorin," Theron joked. Sorin didn't reply. He simply began sliding heavyweight plates onto the sleeve of the bar. The clink of the metal was the only music he needed. He took a deep breath, gripped the cold steel, and prepared to lift the world off his shoulders. Sorin moved through his routine with mechanical focus. After the squats, he moved to the floor to flip a massive tractor tire, a task that required every ounce of his core strength. He then transitioned to isolation work, grabbing a heavy dumbbell for rows and a polished kettlebell for swings. Every representative was a meditation. He didn't have to look up at the clock. He could feel the rhythm of the iron in his muscles. In this space, there were no ambiguous shadows or hidden illnesses, only gravity. Suddenly, the gym's fire alarm shrieked. Sorin and Theron stopped and looked on as smoke began to curl through the ventilation shafts. A kitchen fire in the restaurant downstairs had spiraled out of control. "The back exit is stick," someone shouted, meaning the door was jammed. Theron grabbed a heavy crowbar, and Sorin followed him toward the smoke. They were not firefighters, but they were the strongest people in the building, and they couldn't just stand by. Outside, the chaos was growing. The firefighters had arrived, but a delivery truck had crashed near the hydrant, creating a wall of obstacles that blocked their hoses. Theron rushed to help the emergency crews, using his knowledge of the building's layout to direct them. He pointed out the gas shutoff valves, acting as a vital link between the panic and the professionals. Sorin realized that his ability to remain calm under pressure was just as useful here as it was in the hospital. One of the firefighters yelled for help, moving a heavy crate that had fallen from the truck, pinning a door shut. Sorin didn't hesitate. He had to don a heavy, heat-resistant jacket handed to him by a medic before rushing into the heat. He used the same form he used for his deadlifts, gripping the crate and driving through his legs. Slowly, the heavy box moved, clearing the path. His training with the barbell had prepared him for this exact moment of crisis. As the team worked to extinguish the blaze, a complication arose. The main power box was sparking, and the wires were a tangled mess. A firefighter hesitated. Mentioning his slight color blindness made it difficult to identify the red emergency cutoff. Theron, standing nearby, realized he could help. He had spent years maintaining the gym's electrical systems. He reached into the panel, his steady hands contrasting with the flickering orange light of the fire nearby, and pulled the correct lever to kill the power. Finally, the crews were able to put out the fire completely. Sorin and Theron sat on the curb, covered in soot and sweat. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a deep, honest exhaustion. Sorin watched the firefighters coil their hoses and felt a new sense of perspective. He realized he didn't just look up to the heroes in the movies. He looked up to anyone who stayed to help when things got difficult. They had faced the heat and won. The next day, Soren was back in his dark room. He looked at a new set of scans, his fingers tracing the digital images. The stress of the hospital felt different now, manageable. He knew that whether he was identifying a tumor or moving a crate, he was part of a larger machine designed to save lives. He took a sip of water, adjusted his chair, and began to type his report, making sure to include every necessary umlaut with careful rhythmic precision.